Howdy, howdy, howdy. My name is Atrocities Skull, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. I hit my hand on a chair. Let me swivel that. In the last episode, I'm pretty sure we read the humanoid remote drones, feasting table, asumum, no touching, and freeze tag. I checked freeze tag, and I remember reading about the skeletons encased in igneous rock. So, presumably, this time we're checking the skinning disease, the House of Tomorrow, Atrocities Skull, Xenoplague, and answered dice. Okay, I don't remember that picture, so I think I'm right. Ow. That time it was my leg socket crunching. Okay, SCP-1121, it's Euclid class. Only 2 specimens have been collected of 1121, both at initial containment. These are kept in one of Biological Research Site 13's refrigerated biohazard containment cells in a freezing medium composed of 12% dimethyl sulfoxide, 20% heat inactivated calf serum, and axenic medium at negative 70 degrees Celsius. Cultures of 1 are kept in a glycerol stock under identical temperatures in a separate refrigerated biohazard containment cell. Due to the rarity of 1121 samples, tests are to use 1 cultures instead. Testing is to be authorized and conducted by at least 1 level 4 member of on-site research staff. All personnel not designated a test subject are to wear level A hazmat suits with SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, before handling any cultures of 1. Failure to do so will result in termination and subsequent incineration. Should infections with SCP-1121-1 be reported outside Foundation control, a quarantine is to be instated within a 10-kilometer radius of the established epicenter. All victims not yet deceased are to be terminated, followed by controlled incineration of all bodies. Seemingly uninfected civilians and personnel within the quarantine zone will be detained and monitored. If they develop no symptoms after 24 hours, they are to be administered Class A amnestics and relocated. Any individuals that do develop symptoms within that time period are to be terminated and incinerated. A suitable cover story will be circulated to the media. Description: SCP-1121 is a previously unknown amoeboid protozoa with very specific mutagenic qualities triggered only by Staphylococcus epidermis, a normally benign bacterium present on human skin. If introduced to other organisms, 1121 remains dormant. DNA extracted from samples of 1121 shared genes with several insect species, such as Afrosimex constrictus, Grillotalpa brachytera, and Doru aculeatum. Okay, now what the heck are these? African bat bug. Okay. And what are you? Search. You are a mole cricket. And Doru aculatum is the spine-tailed earwig. While also containing several genes not currently found in known flora or fauna. 1121 does not seem to procreate naturally and does not need fluid to survive. Scanning electron image of 1. Once introduced to S. epidermidis, 1121 mutates all instances of the bacteria into 1, classified as Staphylococcus epidermidis exitibilis? We're calling it C. Before dying. At this point, a subject is considered infected and will start to show stage 1 symptoms as detailed below. Note that while S. epidermidis staph does not normally cause infection in healthy human beings, the 1 pathogen infects 100% of subjects exposed to it. 1 has proven resistant to all known antibiotics, and at this time, no known cure for infections with C exists. A subject infected with 1 goes through a set number of stages. Stage 1, 2 to 5 hours after initial infection, small white lesions appear on the skin. This does not differ from infection by staph, making wrong diagnosis a distinct possibility. Stage 2. Approximately 24 hours after the onset of Stage 1, the lesions will gradually begin to disappear, the infection having spread to the lower layers of the patient's skin. 1 then consumes the subcutaneous tissue, transforming it into a highly viscous substance. This process is extremely painful. The sufferer's skin is at this point connected to underlying tissues only by the substance excreted by 1. In addition, subject's skin turns pale and slouches in areas, mimicking the effects of massive sudden weight loss. Stage 3. Patients begin removing their skin from their body. Ugh. Most sufferers use their own hands for skinning, though in some cases patients resorted to using various tools including knives, windshield scrapers, and in one case a redacted. Okay. This process seems to be painless due to the events of Stage 2, and does not seem to be a conscious activity. When the anomalous substance underneath the skin is exposed to air, it gradually data expunged, commonly found on insects. Victims rapidly become disoriented and invariably hostile to anyone not infected by one as the process of skin removal progresses. In light of this, termination of all victims is necessary, preferably before the disease enters Stage 3. No occurrences of 1121 have been observed outside of initial containment, but the bacterium replicates itself rapidly during stages 1 and 2. Infection of new patients occurs primarily by skin-to-skin contact, as it were, though evidence exists of infection spreading in situations where no direct contact was observed, making Level A hazmat equipment a precautionary must when handling any samples of 1. Furthermore, 1 has been observed to remain active long after Stage 3 has concluded, with samples of skin showing active cultures of the mutated bacteria for up to blank years after initial infection. It is currently unknown during what time period removed skin remains an infection hazard. Addendum A1. Recovery and Preliminary Containment Notes. SCP-1121 was discovered on a meteorite unearthed during an archaeological dig in Blank, New Mexico, probably Roswell, in 19-something. Probably 1953. I don't know why I think that, but let's go with 1953. The archaeologist first exposed to the meteorite was infected with 1, and is at this point considered to be patient 0. Within 2 days, the infection had spread from patient 0 to the entire on-site research team and several citizens of Roswell. Initial containment was managed by the CDC, but after patient 0 entered stage 3 of the disease, operatives within that agency brought in the Foundation. The meteorite and patient 0 were transferred to Biological Research Site 13, and all land in a 10-kilometer radius around the dig site was cleared using MK-77 bombs. I want to see what that is, but I also don't want that in my search history. The only known colonies of 1121 were recovered from the meteorite. Mass spectrometer analysis using rubidium strontium dating of samples determined its age to be approximately 2.5 billion years, basically. Addendum A2. Excerpts from testing log 1121T. Testing designation T1. Name personnel Dr. Blank. Test subject D733045. Transcript. The disposable dude was placed in an artificial coma and 1 was introduced to his skin. Stage 1 symptoms set in, with lesions appearing to spread evenly across subject's body. Lesions seem to be radiating out from the left outer thigh where 1 was applied to the skin. They are still in the coma. It's a month later, looks like, unless this is the next day, because different countries. It's probably the next day. Lesions have started to disappear and subject's skin has been observed to be undulating slightly. Next day. Undulation seems to have stopped, skin seems pale, but subject's vital signs are still good, so they're brought out of artificial coma. Once they are lucid enough for conversation, the doctor initiates contact over the intercom. D73345, how are you feeling? Fine, I guess. I look pale. Anything you'd like to share with us? Not really. Look, Doc, how much longer am I going to be here? Just a little while longer, D73345. We need to observe your behavior. My behavior? What the hell's wrong with my behavior? Nothing's wrong with your behavior. You're goddamn right, nothing's wrong with my behavior. No need for hostility, D73345. We're just here to learn from you. Doctor, I'm not sure I can stand this. You can't stand what, asshole? Research assistant Blank leaves the control room. My assistant had to excuse himself. It seems he's disturbed by your activity since you woke up. What the fuck is wrong with you dicks? I've just been sitting here. Tearing long strips of skin off your left leg. Yes, I know. D73345 was observed without comment for approximately 1 hour and 32 minutes until he'd removed all skin from his body and had become highly erratic and volatile. Terminated and incinerated as per protocol. Test 5. Seems to be the same doctor, but they tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people. Transcript. Subjects were placed in an artificial coma and 1 was introduced to their skin. Stage 1 symptoms set in on 49-234. Other subjects follow. Last subjects begin to show stage 1 symptoms. First subject enters stage 2. Other follow more rapidly than during Stage 1. Last subject enters Stage 3, subjects brought out of artificial coma and observed. Subjects begin removing skin while talking amongst themselves. Conversation soon becomes increasingly erratic as subjects remove more skin from their bodies. No hostility towards other test subjects noted. Subjects are now entirely skinless. The unknown substance hidden beneath their epidermis seems to be data expunged, milling around like redacted. We'll need to study this behavior further. Subjects terminated and incinerated as per protocol. Addendum 1121A3. You know, like, when you were a kid, you'd dig out the ant's nest and step on the biggest one just to see them all run around like little maniacs? They reminded me of that. The way they just stumbled around flailing. Addendum A4. After 1121T5, it's been theorized that 1121 could be part of a terraforming experiment. If that is the case, one is left to wonder just what it was supposed to turn us into, if it's even us they were after, which leads to SCP-1000. Nocturnal Omnivorous Ape. Wait, is this Bigfoot? This is Bigfoot, isn't it? Okay, yeah, so it sounds like they're thinking that the skin-stealing thing was designed to take over the planet from Bigfoot and not from humans. But then humans did what humans did and there's no longer Bigfoot. Now it's time for the House of Tomorrow! It's Euclid. It looks like Bubbles. It looks like it could have been a mirror mask, actually. All roads leading to 1122 are to be sealed off with 2 armed guards posted outside 1122 at all times to prevent unauthorized access. No artificial devices invented after 1940, alright, with the exception of any recording devices which must be worn discreetly, are to be carried into 1122 without administrator approval. All test subjects must be searched before entry to prevent the introduction of unauthorized items into 1122's environment. Description: SCP-1122 is an abandoned tourist attraction located on the outskirts of blankety blank. It was originally constructed in 1950-something as a House of Tomorrow, let's say 57. A demonstration of the then futuristic technology is expected to become commonplace over the following 25 years. There is no evidence that 1122 displayed any anomalous properties prior to its abandonment. The interior is unusually well maintained, and filled with devices that neither existed at the time of the building's construction nor exist in the present. Among other things, the house has a kitchen stocked with food pills that change into 3-course meals upon hydration, miniature robots that perform routine house cleaning and maintenance, and a garage containing a car capable of flight. Smuggling these items out of the house has revealed that they do not function outside of 1122. Although 1122's technology is more advanced than a modern technology in some respects, it is less advanced in others. There are no miniaturized computers on the premises, and the house's television is of a considerably lower picture quality than its modern counterparts. The house is also populated by a Caucasian family of 4 consisting of a man, a woman, and a woman in their mid-30s, an adolescent daughter, and a prepubescent son. Although persons inside 1122 occasionally witness the family members entering and leaving through the house doors, no inhabitant of 1122 has ever been seen outside the building. All 4 residents of 1122 are docile and, at the time of their original discovery, perpetually cheerful and usually willing to answer any questions posed to them. This SCP is the Jetsons, isn't it? Isn't it? When asked for today's date, all 4 residents will claim it is exactly 10 years after the current date. The Foundation originally believed 1122 to be predictive, though this has since been proven false. Their knowledge of history prior to the year 1950-something is relatively accurate. 57. When questioned about history subsequent to 57, they refer to fictitious persons and events such as the creation of a lunar colony, while failing to recognize real events. 1122's most unusual property was demonstrated on blankety blank 1990-something, when Dr. Blank's mobile phone rang while conducting an interview with the family. During his next visit, he noticed 2 talking on a mobile phone of identical design to his own, which the family has used ever since. Upon interrogation, one denied that the phone was a new addition, claiming that he had always owned it. 3 and 4 then complained to Dr. Blank that their mother was too occupied talking on the phone to pay any attention to them, the first time any residents of 1122 displayed unhappiness. Whenever a device that was not in widespread household use before 1957 is seen by the residents of 1122, it will be integrated into the house from that point onward, often replacing an original item. Food pills disappeared from 1122 after the introduction of a microwave oven, for example. Each new item has, without fail, had a negative effect on the house's inhabitants. 1 has frequently been seen drinking, lamenting how things should be better, while 3 and 4 have become more introverted and are rarely seen outside their rooms. All they got was a cell phone and a microwave. But okay. The House of Tomorrow. Now it's time for the Atrocities Skull. Does it yell at people or does it do things? It's saved, so I guess it doesn't do anything. To prevent degradation of SCP-1123 and its markings, it is to be kept in a hermetically sealed container in an argon gas atmosphere when not being tested. I lost my spot. Hold up. During testing and storage, light exposure should be limited to 50 lux, temperature between 20 and 24 degrees Celsius, and relative humidity at 55%. SCP-1123 should only be transported in its container and should not be handled except during a controlled experiment. When not being tested, it will be stored in a secure climate-controlled locker at Site-19. Description: SCP-1123 is a human skull missing the lower mandibles and all of its teeth. Across the exterior squama frontalis is a modern Khmer script written in human blood that translates as "remember." Both skull and blood have been definitively dated to 1970-something, let's say 72, and genetic testing confirms that both are from the same individual. 1123 was discovered in 1984 by Colonel Hugh something of the Vietnamese People's Army within a collection of human remains in the custody of the blankety-blank-blank museum in some place in Cambodia. 1123 was intercepted by Foundation agents as it was being delivered to Hanoi. The script is badly faded and invisible to most subjects beyond 5 meters distance. However, when a subject approaches it, they will report the script becoming progressively more visible until, at less than 1 meter, they will report it appearing as if freshly drawn. A few subjects at this distance report the writing is still wet. This effect is not reproducible with optical equipment. To record the script photographically requires optical enhancement or UV lighting. The latter is not approved for use with SCP-1123 as it contributes to the degradation of the object. Subjects at this distance will often report other anomalous sensory phenomena, including smells such as cooking meat or ashes, sounds such as soft crying, low heartbeats or breathing or distant footsteps, and tactile responses such as grit in the eyes, ants crawling on the back of the hand, or glass splinters in the sole of the foot. When subjects touch the surface of it, they will experience a dissociative fugue state. Initiation of the fugue state appears instantaneous and is not affected by cessation of contact with 1123. Symptoms of the fugue state persist for 90 minutes to 6 hours. The fugue is characterized by confusion, disorientation, and adoption of a new identity and memories which consist of knowledge, including language, previously unknown to the subject. During the fugue, the subject will lose all memories of their prior identity. Subjects have shown various reactions to this, ranging from near catatonia to attempts to escape or attack Foundation personnel. As the fugue state subsides, the subject will regain memories of their prior identity, but will also retain memory of the new, imprinted identity and all the knowledge associated with it. Subjects have said that it was as if they lived an entire other life as some other person in the period between touching 1123 and recovering from the fugue. Post-fugue interviews have provided enough corroborative information in blank of blank studied cases for researchers to find historical documentation confirming the imprinted personality's correspondence to a specific individual who had lived at some time prior to this subject. There appears no connection between the origin of the imprinted personality and the identity of the subject based on age, genealogy, gender, ethnicity, or national origin. Imprinted personalities share the following characteristics. The imprint died before the subject's birth. Date have ranged to as early as 90 years prior to less than 1 year. The imprint was a victim of subjugation, torture, and/or imprisonment. The imprint typically died by violence, usually homicide. Sometimes death has been due to secondary factors such as starvation or infection. The imprint's death was the result of being targeted by a political mass movement, most often with some form of state sanction and/or complicity. Subjects undergo no obvious anomalous after effects due to exposure, but will show psychological effects common to the types of trauma experienced by the imprinted personality. Grief, survivor's guilt, and depression are typical. Suicidal ideation is rare, but has occurred in a small fraction of cases. It should be noted that in treatment of these after effects, use of amnestics has not shown any psychological benefit and has often proved to be harmful. Experiment log. Okay, test 3. Subject white male of mixed Irish and French ancestry, late 30s. Subject approaches 1123 and is told to touch it. Subject collapses upon contact with the skull, begins screaming in Armenian, attacks Foundation doctors when they attempt to assist, calling them Turkish butchers. Subject is sedated and disorientation subsides after 2 hours. Subsequent interviews identify the imprinted personality as an Armenian farmer who was burned alive with approximately 150 other inhabitants of his village by the Ottoman army in 1915. No records exist of the individual, but the event was documented in a 1919 affidavit presented to the Malta tribunals after World War I. Test 508. Asian female of Chinese ancestry, age early 60s, told to touch the skull. Expresses apprehension before touching it. After touching, they do not move for 15 minutes. Afterwards, subject sits down on the ground and is unresponsive for 2 more hours. After the fugue state subsides, subject becomes visibly more distressed and begins weeping. Subsequent interviews identified the imprinted personality as a 16-year-old Ukrainian girl who died in late 1932 from a combination of malnutrition and the after effects of that by members of this. Okay, we're not going to read more of that. The Xenoplague. Of course the Xenoplague is Keter. Why wouldn't the Xenoplague be Keter? It's called a Xenoplague! All samples delivered are in containment. The distance of blank from Earth and the conditions on the planet itself render any breach of containment and active instances of 1124 unlikely. These entities have been observed to be exclusively terrestrial. A repeat of the lander incident at blank Air Force Base is unlikely, as no more than one lander and shuttle was stationed at Ilyina at the time of the outbreak. Research drones have revealed that the since missing shuttle is currently eroding on the planet's surface. Samples of 1124 have been transferred to warehouse compound 1124XA as per recommendation by Dr. Blank. Researcher Sanders, Dr. Herman, and Dr. Smith have been given special clearance to access the samples at their own discretion, with the conditions that update logs and proof of inactivity or reactivation are immediately placed on record. Indefinite surveillance of these researchers is enacted as a precaution. With the exceptions to the Ilyina incident, no instances of 1124 have been activated save for 1124C. The housing compound is located 70 kilometers underground outside of Site Blank, and is equipped with a fail-safe nuclear device should emergency protocol fail. Individual instances of 1124 are encased in airtight, soundproof, heat-proof 1x1x1 meter steel blast safes. Isolated instances of it are kept individually in steel stores with equipped motion and heat sensing equipment. No more than 1 instance is to be tested at any given time. Testing is to be done with approval from each of the 3 aforementioned personnel, Site Director Blank and O5 Directorate approval. It is recommended drones instead be sent to Ilyina for research. Should defensive systems within the testing chamber fail, the chamber is to be immediately sealed, filled with triflic acid, and incinerated. Any researcher present inside of the testing chamber are to remain there during the termination protocol. Efforts are being taken to destroy C before it matures, although with current results this seems unlikely. The progeny itself is contained in a 3x3x3 meter containment unit with acid-proof titanium sheeting. The container should be completely submerged and recycled with triflic acid at all times. The unit itself is to be lined monthly with extra titanium sheeting to replace dissolved or destroyed sheeting. This maintenance process should be completed within a span of 40 minutes. Description: SCP-1124 are metallic objects found near research base Ilyina on blank. The first instances of 1124 were recovered from canisters underneath data expunged mountain range. Entities contained by the canisters have the appearance of cephalopods weighing exactly 1.0268 kilograms. Instances of 1124 are impervious to heat and pressure. Each is otherwise non-responsive to external stimuli save for physical contact with biological matter, which will cause instances to activate and data expunged. Reaction to biological matter originating from a sapient creature tends to elicit a more violent response. Though observations are performed daily through a viewing window in Tank 1124C by monitoring cameras, a definite shape cannot be substantiated. The most recent appearance appears similar to a larval grub. C is in all instances metallic in appearance. The entity frequently gnaws and consumes the casing in its containment unit, although the amount of damage taken is acceptable due to the density and thinness of the film used to line the chamber. Further research into containment is deemed necessary as the creature has been shown to grow in minor increments when more material is consumed. A tear located in researcher Blank's bodysuit during transfer allowed data expunged, activating 1 instance of 1124. Security cameras show the entity quickly gnawing itself out from the inside of its alloy casing and then launching itself into the mouth of one researcher, Blank. This method of mobility is believed to be a spring-like motion using its appendages, but this is still unconfirmed. Following containment procedures, researcher Blank sealed himself inside Unit C and activated the failsafe mechanism effectively containing C. See Incident Report 1124, Personnel Termination Dossier. Reference SCP-1124 transmitted data and video transcript C for further details. Meanwhile, X-23C Ileana 6555-X-23 Lander transmitted data. Dr. Sanders, audio log A20, reporting successful mission. Samples are being housed. What we think are glass canisters were found beneath the data expunged mountain range. 84 south, 23 east on your grids. Estimated 4 minutes before we reach the rover. Reached rover ahead of schedule. Everyone is present and accounted for. Estimated 1 hour before we reach Ileana. We're in the airlock now. We've dumped our cargo. Researcher Breen reports he is delivering the recovered canisters to Dome Theta. Signing off. Met with Breen and he hasn't said anything about the canisters yet. Saving the best for last, he says. Don't know how he can resist something that bizarre. Guess that's why we got him up here. Meeting with Breen again. Let me turn up my transmitter here. Say something, Breen. Greetings from space! You're a silly bitch, Breen. He's got a few of the things that were inside the canisters laid out on a table. Breen says the canister itself wasn't glass, though. Not sure what the material was. The canisters are egg-shaped, no markings, smooth. They have lids on their ends that detach and reattach given a gentle pull. There are no adhesives, no screw tops, or anything like that. They just come off and on. The things inside the eggs look like little silver squids. Their limbs are segmented. Can't make out any eyes or mouths. Breen shook one around, but the limbs didn't wiggle like we expected them to. They're stiff. Breen can't begin dissection. Their outer shells are too hard, thinking they might just be figurines or something like that. Breen has blasted these things with heat, froze them, even put them in a crusher, and they don't seem to react at all. They just sneeze off anything we throw at them. He joked that we should sneeze on them. Breen gave me the honors. Couldn't sneeze, so I just spat on one. They don't seem to be affected. They think they might be figurines. Mother mercy, one of the appendages is actually moving. Whoo, boy, that scared this indecipherable noise. Log terminated. Reference addendum 1124, audio A for the 1 minute, or the whatever that transmission was. Okay. SCP-1124 Addendum A. Ileana lander returned to blank Air Force Base in blank Nevada on blankety blank 2000-something without a shuttle. 6555X23 was obtained by the organization after being alerted of the circumstances of its arrival by General Blank. It arrived with no passengers and loaded past carrying capacity with instances of 1124 in their original canisters. Attempts to contact Theta or the station have since been unsuccessful. An unmanned drone has since been deployed to blank to investigate. Addendum B. Research drone X-23E was able to gain access to the research bay at Ileana. Unidentified variations of 1124 were discovered before comm lost with the drone. Reference video transcript C. Video transcript. Classification number 1. Small and generally inactive. Metallic in appearance, has a distinct cone-shaped mantle, and is perfectly bilaterally symmetrical. Speculated to activate when exposed to biological matter. No heat signature. Anatomically similar to common spiders. This is the second one. Differs in appearance from spiders in that the body segments are fused into 4 tagmata and joined by 4 cylindrical pedicels. Has 1 anterior antennae, ignores research drone X-23E. No heat signature. 5. Hominid appearance. Appears in multiple places in different frames. After following the drone for some time, a large flare damaged thermal sensors. 4. Whatever that means. 88. We can conclude the material composing the progeny of 1124 is vincible, and other frames of material shown to have regenerated. 89. Data expunged. 7. Entity ignored research drone allowing for close inspection. Has a tail equal in length to its body, 2 sets of serrated teeth, each approximately 10 centimeters in length. Observed destroying walls in Theta and consuming them. The consumption seems to be aided by elongated nostrils near its anterior. Number 6. Data expunged, data invalidated. 24. Fluctuated in appearance wildly through this, although this may be made due to damaged thermal sensors. Subject appears reptilian in appearance. 23. Caused considerable damage to X-23E. Sampling actuators completely dissolved. Data invalidated. 1124 blank. After some observation, the subject's appearance altered to that of blank, or assuming data expunge, and gestures as if to suggest that the drone do so. Researchers remotely operating the drone attempt to communicate with the entity. As a result of this verbal stimulus, the entity charges towards the drone and finally communication with X-23E ceases. No further data could be obtained. Compilers note Addendum D. Instances of 1124's progeny that express low heat signatures vary slightly in appearance but share some characteristics including metallic angular features and segmented limbs. Entities with higher heat signatures appear less angular and are not segmented. Some bodily features are similar to animals that were previously housed on site, although these influences seem to be primarily reptilian. Temperatures on blank range from -208 to -223 degrees Celsius, and surface gravity is roughly 44.88 meters per second squared. To the second. Life support systems at Ileana are not functional. Gravity stabilization generators inside Ileana are also non-functioning. The atmosphere of blank would corrode most Earth metals. These entities do not require air and are composed of currently unclassified organic materials or metals. And it used to say, testing is requested on Earth-housed samples to confirm whether environmental factors affect the abilities of 1124, or 1124 as testing on active samples at Ileana is limited due to aforementioned conditions at Ileana and the limitations of the research drones. Video recording 1124C area. Researcher blank enters area C carrying container with one instance of 1124. They lose balance. A tear is shown on closer inspection near the researcher's leg. A negligible amount of blood is spilled on the casing. The casing begins to move around and slide on the floor. Blank places two hands on the casing, effectively stopping it from moving. A small hole appears on the casing surface. Researcher blank places one hand over the hole and quickly recoils in pain. A figure matching typical appearance of 1124-1 emerges from the hole slightly, pausing for roughly 3 seconds. Researcher remains still and continues looking at it. 1124 retreats into the hole. The researcher produces emergency film from a storage closet near 1124 and leans over the box to begin applying it to the casing. 1124 shoots out of his casing and into the researcher's mouth. It appears to panic, runs into cell C, and begins punching a button linking to the failsafe. Doors to unit 1124C lock, and chamber begins filling with triflic acid and mist. Researcher's head appears to inflate slightly. They collapse. The skull appears through cracks in the skin on the head. Blood begins to drain from the cranial orifices. At this point, filming is obscured by acid, but all but completely filling the tank. The sound of a metallic screeching can be heard, followed by a dull thud and a sound similar to a balloon popping. Related documentation. Short history of Ileana, Project Tantalus, and the Grey Dragon incident. Probably don't need to know this. And that brings us to 1125, the answer dice. What will they answer? I don't know, but they're Euclid. Specimens of 1125 are to be locked in opaque storage crates and kept in the SIV, Small Items Vault, at Site 12. In the event of exposure to 1125 outside of testing procedures, any and all personnel affected are to be detained and separated from 1125 for application of Class A amnestics and psychological reconditioning. Disposable dudes used in testing procedures are to be given initial questions specified in document 1125D Reg A XCOM V 1.21. Mobile Task Force Gamma 11 dice jockeys have been tasked with location and acquisitions of instances of 1125 outside of Foundation control. SCP-1125 is a collection of individually packaged dice with their pips replaced by the words yes, 2x, no, 2x, and maybe 2x, or 2 times. All specimens were machined from pine wood and had their surface treated with an unremarkable yellow dye and a chemical sealant to prevent wear. The answers available on the dice are rendered in an MS Comic Sans font using a dye containing traces of charcoal, a dye stabilizing agent, and redacted. The words "The Factory" are found on the cardboard backing attached to each clear plastic packaging. Underneath the company logo, an advertising slogan that reads, "They'll make up your mind," is printed in bold red lettering with a white outline. If encountered without their packaging, instances of 1125 are currently indistinguishable from similar non-anomalous answer dice. In light of this, Any and all similarly colored answer dice found in Foundation facilities are to be destroyed immediately without further physical contact by personnel, and any potentially compromised personnel are to submit to the application of class amnestics and psychological reconditioning. 1125's effect becomes apparent when a specimen makes contact with the epidermis of a human being. An immediate compulsion to make use of it comes over the subject, who will phrase a query concerning a binary decision and roll 1125. It then provides an answer, where it must be noted that if a roll indicates an answer of maybe, the subject will continue to roll the die indefinitely until either an affirmative or negative answer has been generated. Subjects will unfailingly keep to the answer provided by 1125, even if this will produce undesirable results. Furthermore, while initial use of this object seems to be made with trivial, sometimes even whimsical questions, testing has shown prolonged exposure to lead to increasingly critical decisions being made dependent on 1125. Subjects in possession of a specimen gradually become unable to make any decision without resorting to the object, and, over time, even base decisions are not normally consciously made on the result of 1125 provides them with. If challenged, subjects will not perceive this to be abnormal behavior and will actively resist attempts to take 1125 away from them. Testing has revealed that while 1125 influences decisions, it does not confer abilities to the subject that it did not have before. The Site-12 SIV currently holds 79 individual instances of 1125, with several specimens having been removed for testing purposes. These were subsequently destroyed to prevent accidental exposure. Addendum 1. Excerpts from transcript of video log 1125 DV23. D43426 enters the testing environment where a package containing one specimen of 1125 is laid out on a small metal folding table. In addition, a bed and a single chair are provided. Please open the packaging and take out the die. Whatever you say. Subject picks up the item and examines it briefly before tearing open the packaging. The object falls out and lands on the floor, rolling under the table. Shit! Sorry, Doc. That's fine. Please retrieve the die. Subject picks up the specimen. Got it! Now what? Please do as you like. Well, might as well roll a little sucker then, so what do I ask it? That is up to you. Anything will do as long as the question answerable by yes or no. Sure. Should I clap with my hands? Rolls 1125. Good. Now please read the answer the die gave you. Subject leans in closer and then turns towards the doctor. It says yes. Claps hands. Why did you do that? I don't know. It seemed like the thing to do. I mean, it said yes. Can I roll it again? End transcript excerpt timestamp. Begin transcript excerpt timestamped. D43426. Should I eat this then? Subject rolls 1125 but quickly tears open the box of Pop-Tarts provided to him. 1125 is shown to indicate an answer of yes. This is the first sustenance subject has permitted himself in 18 hours. Timestamp. It's a week later. Should I breathe? Subject is shown to come up with maybe, and subject immediately rolls it again. This second rolls on a no, and subject seems to comply. Should I breathe? Subject rolls the die again. End transcript excerpt. Okay, so they probably died from not breathing. Man, that factory. Most of the things the factory does are horrifying, and then sometimes they have stuff. I feel like those dice were probably them experimenting with seeing what happens if they take Dr. Wondertainment stuff and factorize it. Or factory-rise it. They messed it up. So, this has been Anashi Sasuke. This is episode 220-something of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the next episode, we're going to be reading Agent Palmer, a film festival, aquatic horror, hyper-arousal response, and a handy shortcut. If you liked it, a like and subscribe would be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. If you'd like to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you'll be notified of future uploads, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.